For decades, we've all heard the same thing, that a little bit of alcohol might actually be good for you, right? A glass of red wine for your heart, a drink to unwind. It's a nice thought, but what does the actual hard science have to say about it? Well, today we're going to strip away all the myths and dive straight into the biology of what's really happening inside your brain and your body when you drink, all based on the work of Stanford neuroscientist Dr. Andrew Huberman. All right, let's just get right to it. This is the big question, the one so many of us have wondered about. You see it in the headlines, you hear it from your friends. But as we're about to see, some incredibly powerful new science is forcing us to really rethink this entire idea. So, where is this all coming from? Well, the real game changer is a huge study recently published in the super prestigious journal Nature, and it used data from the UK Biobank. Now, this wasn't just some small survey. This was a deep biological dive, looking at the actual physical structure of people's brains. And what they found, well, it's incredibly clear. And to really get a sense of why this research is such a big deal, you just gotta look at the scale of it. We're talking about the brains of over 36,000 adults. I mean, that sheer amount of data lets scientists see patterns that smaller studies could just never, ever pick up on. So what did they find? The single most important takeaway is this. Even what we all think of as low to moderate drinking, just 1 or 2 drinks a day, was directly linked to measurable physical brain damage. We're talking about a thinning of the neocortex. That's the part that does all our high-level thinking. It also showed a loss of gray matter, those are your actual brain cells, your neurons, and a loss of white matter, which is all the critical wiring between those neurons. It's basically a picture of brain degeneration. Okay, so why does this happen? To get that, we've got to follow the journey alcohol takes through your body, starting from that very first sip. And the first thing to really understand biologically is that your body treats alcohol, the ethanol, as a poison that it has to get rid of ASAP. This whole process happens mostly in your liver, and it's a 3-step deal. First, you drink the ethanol. Then, your body converts it into this other molecule called acetaldehyde, and this is the one you really need to pay attention to. And finally, that acetaldehyde gets turned into acetate, which your body can use for fuel, sure, but as Huberman points out, it's basically just empty calories. So let's zoom in on this acetaldehyde, because honestly, it is the real villain in this whole story. This stuff isn't just some harmless byproduct, it's a straight-up poison that just goes around damaging cells everywhere in your body. And get this, you know that feeling we call being drunk? That's not the ethanol. That feeling is your body reacting to a toxic buildup of acetaldehyde. You are quite literally feeling the effects of being poisoned. And look, Dr. Huberman doesn't mince words on this at all. He says it as bluntly as possible. The main thing your body makes from alcohol is even worse than the alcohol itself. This isn't just an opinion, it's a biochemical fact. And understanding this one point is the key to understanding everything else alcohol does. Okay, let's shift gears and move up to the brain and see how all this plays out in the short term. We all know alcohol changes how we act, but the way it works neurologically is fascinating, and it tells us a lot about how our own brains are wired. The easiest way to think about this is to imagine your prefrontal cortex as the brain's brake pedal. It gives us what scientists call top-down inhibition, which basically just keeps our more impulsive, kind of primitive behaviors in check. Well, alcohol comes along and slams the brake off. It just releases it. This is exactly why at a party the volume of everyone's voice just keeps going up and up. They're not trying to shout, their brain's natural volume knob has just been turned way down. Alcohol also completely hijacks our mood by messing with serotonin. Those first few sips cause this little spike, and that's why we feel good and social and kind of relaxed. But it's a trap. It's really short-lived. As the alcohol wears off, you get this much longer, much deeper drop in serotonin, which leaves you feeling way worse than before you even started drinking. And this creates that classic cycle, right? You reach for another drink to get that good feeling back, all while you're digging a deeper and deeper neurochemical hole for yourself. And here's the really wild part. This isn't just a temporary chemical thing. Through neuroplasticity, regular drinking physically rewires your brain. It literally strengthens the neural pathways for being impulsive and weakens the pathways for being thoughtful and in control. But here's the good news. For most people, this is totally reversible. After about 2 to 6 months of no alcohol at all, the brain can actually rewire itself back to how it was before. Okay, let's talk about the dreaded hangover. We've all been told, oh, just drink a glass of water, right? Well, the modern science of a hangover shows it is so much more than just being dehydrated. It's actually a full-body, multi-system failure. So let's break it down. That awful feeling of anxiety? Yeah, that's your body flooding itself with the stress hormone cortisol to fight back against the alcohol. Your sleep? Totally wrecked. Alcohol creates this pseudo-sleep where you never really get into the deep restorative stages. It's more like being sedated than actually resting. Down in your gut, alcohol is just a wrecking ball for good bacteria, which causes all sorts of inflammation. And that pounding headache? That's often a rebound effect, where your blood vessels clamp back down way too hard after the alcohol made them expand. So, does it matter what you drink? Oh, absolutely. The science points to these things called congeners, which are basically byproducts from the fermentation process. And you can see a really clear pattern here. Drinks that are high in congeners, like brandy or red wine, are way more likely to give you a monster hangover than drinks with lower levels, like beer or clear liquors. So we've covered the immediate effects in the morning after, but what happens when you zoom out? What is the cumulative true cost of drinking over months and years and decades? Well, that's where we start to see the really serious long-term damage. One of the most insidious effects is how it messes up what scientists call the gut-liver-brain axis. Now check out this crazy cycle. Alcohol damages your gut and inflames your liver. Those systems then send distress signals up to the brain. And bizarrely, the brain interprets that inflammation as a signal that it needs more alcohol, which creates this vicious feedback loop where the damage itself actually makes you crave the very thing that's causing the damage. The long-term risks also extend to cancer in a major way. This number right here represents the increased risk of getting breast cancer for every 10 grams of alcohol. That's less than one standard drink that's consumed per day. And this isn't new. We've known about this link since the 80s. It happens because alcohol messes with our DNA in a process called methylation. Basically, it's just flipping the on-off switches of our genes when it shouldn't be. And just to put that risk into a context we can all really understand, epidemiologists have made this pretty jaw-dropping comparison. From a cancer risk perspective, having just 1 to 2 alcoholic drinks per day carries a similar risk profile to smoking up to 10 cigarettes per day. I mean, when you see it like that, it's a pretty sobering thought that really highlights a biological cost we just don't talk about. Okay, wow. So after hearing all of that, it's easy to feel a little doomed, right? But this isn't about scaring you. It's about empowering you. So what can you actually do about it? Dr. Huberman lays out several science-backed protocols that you can use to protect your health and maybe mitigate some of this damage. First up, your gut. Since alcohol devastates it, you gotta fight back by supporting your good gut bacteria with things like sauerkraut or kimchi. Second, since we know drinking messes with your stress levels, learn some tools that don't involve alcohol, like breathwork or meditation. Third, if you do drink, it's not just about water. You need to rehydrate with electrolytes too to help your neurons fire correctly. And finally, this one is really interesting. There's evidence that safe cold exposure, like a cold shower the day after drinking, can help your body clear out all those toxic byproducts a bit faster. So when you put it all together, you look at the brain scans, the gut biology, the cancer risk, the hormonal chaos, the scientific conclusion is, well, it's pretty unavoidable. From a purely physiological, what's best for my health standpoint, the evidence is overwhelming. The optimal amount of alcohol is 0. This isn't about being good or bad, it's just biology. Every single drink carries a biological price that your body has to pay. Look, the whole point of this was never to tell anyone what to do. It was just to lay out the unfiltered biological truth of what alcohol does to your body and brain so that you can make your own informed choice. You now have the science, you're in the driver's seat, so the real question is, what role do you want it to have in your life?